Hi, welcome back to the shop. My name's Greg Gimlick. I write for Model Aviation Magazine. I do their electric column. I do features and product reviews for Model Airplane News and an editor's blog there also. I'd like to welcome you back. Today what we're going to do is look at some techniques for hinging. It's something that whether you're building from scratch or a kit or assembling an ARF that comes into play. Seemingly a simple process, and it is if done properly, but it's one I get a lot of emails about asking for tips and some suggestions and ways to fix some problems guys have run into. So today we're going to look at that. Specifically, we'll be looking at some pieces from the Kyosho Foxwolf 190 that I'm building for Model Airplane News. And that has some unique hinging things to do. So we're going to get into that. I'll show you how to do that without any problems, and hopefully it'll make your building better, neater, and more effective in the future. So let's get started. First of all, most of the time that we do some hinging, practically everybody's familiar with the typical pieces that have the little CA hinges that we use. And it's easy, they just slide into some slots. Most guys just bend it, throw a little CA in there, and you're done. The problem we run into is both spacing, and oftentimes when these little round or square hinges are slid into the slots, we'll slide them into one side, and then you go to slide the other piece on. And when that happens, sometimes that piece actually pushes in to one side or the other. And what happens, rather than having half the hinge in one side and half in the other, you end up with almost all of it in one side and very little of it in the other. That means you're not getting the full gluing surface on both sides, and your hinge could be compromised under stress. And we're going to show you how to fix that today without any problem at all. Okay, we've assembled the pieces we need to do our hinging project here, and we'll start with the vertical stab and rudder. What we've got is on the top half of the rudder, we've got two spots that need to be hinged. And what we'll do is we'll take two of the hinges and we'll take a T-pin, just a common old T-pin available at your hardware store or hobby shop, and poke it right through the middle of each hinge. What that does for us, it allows us to slide it into the slot in the surface and just push it on down right to the halfway point. Take our stab, line up our hinges, start them in the slots. Sometimes it takes a little convincing. Slide them together. When you do that, usually there's enough play in these pieces that you can see up here that they're not perfectly lined up. So before you do any gluing, you want to slide them around, make sure that those surfaces are perfectly aligned. You can also see what that does is it gives us just the tiniest gap in here. Very small, just the width of a T-pin. Make sure that you have plenty of room for deflection on both sides. What it also does is in some airplanes and surfaces, if you mash these tight up together and run your CA in, you'll actually glue your surfaces together. What this does is it prevents that. Once that's into place, and I'm not going to glue these because I'm not ready to do that step in the total kit yet. But once these are in place, all you have to do is you've got a little gap in there, come down and drop a CA each side, go to the other side and drop a CA. Try not to let any run out, you'll get white residue on your covering if you do. Set that aside, let it dry. When it's dry, pull the two T-pins right out. You'll have a perfectly aligned hinge surface that has the right amount of deflection on each side. Easy, simple, Make sure you have exactly half on each side and you're all set. Now, one of the challenges I spoke about earlier with the Kyosho is in our Foxwolf 190 we have flaps. From the top side you don't see them because it's a beautifully done system where they've got them all underneath, just the way they should be. Now, the problem that I have received a couple of emails on, guys have accidentally glued this to the underside of their wing surface. Well, I can understand how that can happen because they slide their hinge in, it's down. The only way you can really get to that is to have it flat, then they drop the glue in. Well, what they don't think about is that glue running between these surfaces and gluing the two surfaces. You can usually pop that loose, clean it up, but let's avoid that right from the start. I've got my other wing panel here, and what I've done is the process I just showed you. We've got our pins, T-pins in. I slid them in halfway. Got a nice gap. I've hit them with the CA. Pop the T-pins out. This is my aileron now. And the aileron is perfectly hinged. Nice gap. You can just barely see a little light through there. So it's nicely done. Did the same process down here on my ailerons. The only difference is running into the kitchen, grab a little wax paper. I keep a roll in the shop all the time. This is some of the handiest stuff you can have around. Assuming you can find the end of your roll. Take a piece of the wax paper, tear it off. Now, same thing, do your hinge pieces here with the pins on your aileron or your flaps. But before you glue them, take the wax paper, slide it up under those the flaps, and then push it down flat. Come in here, hit the CA, give it some time to cure, and then you can pop that right open because the CA is not going to stick to the wax paper. Pull that out. Also gives you a chance to see if by chance you did let any run in there by any chance. You can run something in there, a paper towel, rag, whatever, little alcohol, clean that out. Pull your T-pins and you'll have this. It's a perfectly hinged surface. There is, probably hard to see in there, but there is no residue. You can't pull these out. They're perfect. Everything's good, no residue anywhere, evenly spaced hinges. I know I've got half on the inside, half on the outside, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So that's it. Just a few quick, easy suggestions to help you do a better job on your airplane. It actually will make it quicker than trying to take all the precautions and not letting the CA run different places. Next thing you know, we're going to have an airplane. Thanks for coming by. If you have any questions, the email's at the end on the credits. Feel free to drop me a line. Check out the blogs at Model Airplane News, and you can follow this project along there. Have a good day. Be careful in the shop, folks.